Hi, I'm Anusia, and welcome to Soul Toll, your place to pause so you can explore your life in a whole new way. Today, we're speaking with Tivan Amour, a serial entrepreneur who has built and sold companies and now invests in and advises them. He has cultivated what I would call an almost radical philosophy, which is don't hire sad people. I've never heard that before. I don't know if you have. And it makes a lot of sense taken at face value, but what does that really mean in practice? And I think it's something we can think about in business or in life, really. Who are you surrounding yourself with? And does that need a fresh look? Let's figure that out today with Tivan. Tivan, welcome to Soul Toll.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you for
having-
being here. Well, you know what? I'm gonna throw it on the table. Lifestyle design. I really like this term. And we're gonna use that as the frame today for this conversation. What does lifestyle design mean to you? And we're gonna frame that for the don't hire sad people conversation.
So I've only had two real jobs in my life. One was selling cell phones for the likes of AT&T, Sprint, Verizon. Another one was as a product manager for Abercrombie and Fitch right out of college. Those
Okay.
are the only two real jobs I had. And after the latter, I realized I'm not cut out for corporate life.
Okay.
So I went on this journey, kind of trying to start my own companies. Failed a bunch over the first couple of years, and over the course of that early process, I was reading a bunch of like entrepreneur books. One of them was 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and he talks a lot about lifestyle design in that and in his successive books.
And for people who haven't read that, 4 Hour Work Week, I mean, thesis isn't the title, but will you
Yeah.
just kind of give us a snapshot of it?
The idea is that especially in the age of the internet, there are many, many ways to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
And so really sky's the limit on what you can achieve and what kind of lifestyle you can have as long as you have an idea, you want to work hard, and you have kind of the right principles
Okay.
in
World
mind.
is your oyster.
Yes.
All right.
But with the advent of the internet, you can actually design a life where you're prioritizing, doing the things that you love to do, and business doesn't take all of your time.
Mm-hmm. Live to work to live.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
you can live like a European if you want
Okay. So
to.
this is lifestyle design, and this is
Yeah.
where you kind of came to it in, hey, corporate world might not be for me. Entrepreneurship might be where it's at. And part of that is that I can design my life in a way that is more suited for you, perhaps. Although 4 Hour Work Week is not a typical entrepreneurship journey. So
Yeah.
how did that evolve?
So there's a funny story behind how he even titled that book. He
Okay.
ran a bunch of AdWords campaigns to see which one got more clicks.
Okay.
So I think that's more just like a clickbait title.
Oh, okay. It's not
Um,
real.
I've met Tim Ferriss a couple times, and I'm pretty sure he works more than 4 hours a week. He's built different, but uh, I just think that the 40-hour work week is definitely like a vestige of like a bygone era.
hmm All right, so back to our thesis statement of don't hire sad
Sure.
people. Before we get into exactly what that means, it's like to talk about kind of the business case for listening to this conversation today. Like if someone follows the don't hire sad people philosophy, what could be different for them in their work life, both?
Work and life.
Yeah.
So I think we're rarely intentional about who we surround ourselves with. We assume that the people around us are there by chance happening, but increasingly you have total control over, who you spend time with. Certainly, when it comes to your work relationships, who you associate with, your even customers who you decide to serve and bring on, um, your friends, your family, and I think the agency that you have in it comes down to every incremental text message that you send, right? Who am I going to bring into my orbit, and who am I going to slow down on talking to,
hmm
and slow down on engaging with?
And so if I bring that into my life and I'm intentional about that. I mean, it sounds like you had and maybe not, maybe you've just had this your whole life, but it sounds like you had more of a turning point where you came across that philosophy and started implementing it. So I'm just curious of the before and after
Sure.
of starting to live that way.
Why don't I give you the genesis of it from
Okay.
like the career standpoint, like how we even came to that
Yeah,
philosophy,
yeah.
my
Let's
co-founder and
let's hear
I.
about it.
Because I don't even know that I've practiced it that well in my personal life.
Okay. Let's start where it's
Yeah.
working.
Um, My co-founder and I had a startup. It was a text message marketing business, and we were hiring rapidly. And there was probably a 2-year stint where a good number of the people that we hired, we ended up having to let go after,
It's
a
bad.
short amount of time.
Yeah.
And it became enough of a problem that we sat down and we are like, okay, we got to figure out what we're doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we were trying to basically correlate, like, what are the things that these hires have had in common, holding everything constant as much as we could. And we figured out that we figured out it was a culture thing. There was some sort of like issue with the cultural fit. And when we dug deeper, we figured out that like the commonality between the people that we were letting go were people who just like kind of seemed like they had other things going on in life that were pulling them down. And that was an aha moment for us because we realized, first of all, we don't have the capacity to solve that for those people.
Mm-hmm.
And two, it's not really our job,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that gave us, I think, a lot more freedom and a lot more control over the success of our business. Um, and the next few hires that we made, actually, after making that realization, were much stronger hires. Not to say that there weren't other elements involved, but we certainly didn't make that mistake after kind of
How do you
coming up
filter
with an
for that
insight.
though? Like, how do you know, oh, I'm hiring a sad person or I'm not hiring a sad person? What is that filter?
Some of the types of questions, obviously, so hiring is obviously not a one round game, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of interviews that you do and try to spend as much time with people as possible. Um, but I think it's important to not hire based on vibes as much as possible because that's what gets you into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So the types of like specific questions I like to ask are around passions, and to kind of really try to figure out if there's a spark when I ask folks what they care about. Um, Naturally, you have to get through some of the, I guess, nervousness in that people might have in interviews to like divulge everything about their
Right.
lives. Um, but you'd be surprised how many folks can't come up with why they exist, just like what they live for, right? And if I can't sense that passion after, many times talking to someone, then it's pretty clear that like we're going to have a problem when they're under a bunch of stress,
Yeah, I'm
right?
I'm really curious about this though because you're saying, okay, so what sparks you, what lights you up so that you have enough energy to be here and be here in a like happy, good vibe way. Not hiring for vibes, but
Yeah,
let's just say it that way. But I feel like people are scared to show that part of themselves a lot, even in entrepreneurship, even in startups, because the thought is, well, if I show that I have a hobby, if I show that I have an interest outside of work, then I'm not fully dedicated. I'm not here, 100% of the time. And so maybe it's a counterintuitive thought, or maybe it just depends on the founder. But people are scared to show that because it equates to time spent not on the job. Did you experience that or have that in mind?
that's a great challenge because if I'm thinking about it more practically, a lot of folk, the best hires, really, really get a lot of enjoyment out of their jobs if they're the right fit.
Mm.
So sometimes you may be asking about work related stuff, but you see the spark, right? So it's not necessarily like, tell
Yeah,
me what you
something
do on
outside.
Saturdays, right?
Yeah.
But I think more generally, just trying to pull out stories from folks that that will bring out their emotion as opposed to, so tell me about the program you ran and what were the metrics, and did you hit them and what was the timeline, right? Like more specifically geared towards, what's the happiest you've ever been, working on a project.
I love that you
Yeah.
use the word emotion or the scary F word of feelings
Yeah.
um, in that because I feel like people throw out around the word energy. Everyone loves energy. Everyone needs energy. Everyone, is bringing that to a project. And but then if you tie the word emotion or feeling to it, all of a sudden it's kind of like a weird thing to talk about. So I don't know. I'm just throwing that thought over to you. I'm not really even sure what to do with it. Uh, like, do you have those conversations of energy to emotion to feeling as you're making those hiring decisions? Like, what does that look like?
I think that good working relationships come down to whether or not we trust each other. Your best employees feel like they trust that you have their best interest in heart.
Mm-hmm.
And on the flip side, you trust that when you hand something to them, it's going to come back better than you imagine.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what the contract is,
Mm-hmm.
that keeps everything running. Um, and there are tried and true ways to develop that trust, right? People go out drinking, they share meals, they
Mm-hmm.
share lunches, they have one-on-ones that get kind of personal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I've started to do in the last few years, post like crazy startup world and more
Mm-hmm.
like more laid back agency life, everyone that I bring onto the team, um, I ask them to tell me like what their ideal lifestyle is. And it's not just like how many hours do you work? It's like what kind of work are you doing? How long, like what days, how often? Because we're in a world where I have folks that might work a few hours a week or might work 40 hours a week for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, look, I am in this fortunate position to have designed my life in a way where it fits with my family and it fits with the sports I like to do and it fits with income goals and everything. And I want everyone that we bring on the team to also have that same control over their life. So tell me, what are you looking for? And luckily we have enough opportunity that like we can find something for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Tell me what it is. And that conversation, starting that conversation, having that conversation as like one of the first conversations, really I think starts the trust relationship on a really good foot because they know that I mean ideally if they're the right type of person, like
Mm-hmm.
we are aligned, right?
Yeah. So tell me, Tivan, what are you looking for? I
Mm,
know that you had a conversation with your wife after you sold your last company and being really intentional about your lifestyle design.
mm.
So, how did you get to the place that I think a lot of people want and are looking for? So, who are you surrounding yourself with, and how do you get to a place where you can have it all?
I won't
I know. Say that
pretend
you
I
have it
won't
all. I know.
pretend that
That was too big, but you know what I'm
um,
saying.
so I did mm, 9 or 10 years running startups that were venture backed. Um, and what that means is that we would raise money. We'd have an idea, we'd build an MVP, like a minimal viable product. We'd
Hmm.
raise money for it, and then we would scale it up and hopefully eventually exit the company. Over the course of maybe 9 years, I raised 7 rounds of financing for those companies. Um, and five of those fundraisers I led myself. And my wife saw me through most of those.
And that's just like bring people into what that entails. Those are really big projects.
It basically entails saying, okay, well, this business is going to need to hire a bunch of people before we're profitable and
Hmm.
we're able to pay for all those people.
Right.
So we're going to need to put 500,000 or 1 million or 2 million or 3 million or more into the bank in order to give us some time to generate,
And
enough
convince
revenue
people to
and
give you that
margin.
money to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
right.
so the fundraise is going to anywhere from 50 to 100 or more investors, one by one,
Hmm.
and pitching them on the big vision. Excuse me. And that can be very taxing. And it's not necessarily taxing in terms of like, I mean, that is a lot of conversations to have,
Hmm.
regardless, right? If you did it in a marathon, it would be hard. What's really hard though is the ego swings, right? So having 10 people or 20 people in a row be like, this is not for me. I don't see how this is going to
Yeah.
work is really, really hard. It's really hard to get home after a day of doing that 5 times in a row and just have like a normal conversation
Yeah.
with your partner.
Because it questions, are we on the right path, or just because it's hard to get a no?
I just think that there's rarely other things we experience in life where there's that much rejection all at once.
Okay.
And the stakes are kind of high. So every single one of those fundraisers, especially as our businesses got a little bit more mature, we might have like a couple $1 million of payroll that we have to meet,
Hmm. Right.
and
Yeah.
we might have a
People's
couple
livelihoods are at stake.
a
Yeah.
couple months of runway.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that the pressure and kind of the rejection together can really impact you. I don't know. I like to think that today, if I did something like this, I would be like maybe have thicker skin the eighth time around.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, so after doing that a lot, Towards the end of my contract with my last acquirer, my wife was like, "Hey, just so we're on the same page, like you're not going to go do that crazy shit again." I was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, you were miserable, and it kind of
Did you
sucked.
know?
Maybe, but it's hard to remember. I remember some of the lows. I remember some of the highs. It's hard to totally like be able to categorize it. So it was good to have like a third party
Mm-hmm.
say, "Hey, are you sure you want to do this?" And that gave me, I think, um, tool to be a little bit more introspective about it. And she was like, "Look, you don't need to raise money anymore. You can run like a real business." Imagine that. You can build something that's profitable from day one. You can slow down a little bit. We've got kids now.
Permission to slow down.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, to her credit, that started me on a path that uh, is definitely ambitious, but uh, with a bunch of other factors in mind. I turned 40 this year, and
Congratulations.
thank you. We're here. Um, and I would say that like at this age, my health is way more important than any incremental dollar or accolade or anything like that. So I told you, like today, played pickleball most of the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and you asked me, you asked me
You
how
lied to me.
you
The
asked,
first thing you came in and you lied to me. I said, it's your day.
you said, how's your day? And I said, good.
Okay, you half truthed
I
me.
said, good. And then there was like a little bit of
Yeah.
hesitancy because I didn't want I I was realizing like it was good because I won a lot of pickleball, and I was like embarrassed to say that.
Yeah.
'Cause that's a weird thing to say. Um, but
I think it's a flex. I don't think it's a weird thing to say. I think it's wonderful.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm good at pickleball. No, I'm kidding. No, it was. Um, so I have this Whoop app. Are you familiar with the Whoop?
Nope.
So it's this.
Okay.
Uh, it's a Boston-based company. They're kind of like the Aura Ring or like an Apple Watch, but it tracks all of your health metrics, your heart rate, and one of the things they came out in the last year with is the ability to see your biological age based on all these different markers.
Mm,
So right now on Whoop, I'm like 33 or 34,
nice. Good for you.
and I used to have fitness goals, and they didn't really stick because it was like things I didn't really care about.
Yeah.
Get stronger,
For what?
faster.
To what
Yeah.
end? Yeah.
But now that I have a biological age, like that kind of goal is really easy for me. So my goal is to be 30 by the end of the this year that I'm chronologically 40.
Okay.
And I know all the different things that I have to do that. I have to start running a little bit more. I have to do more strength training a couple times a week.
Do you think it's just physical that goes into your age? Have you looked into the factors like
There are stress factors, so it
yeah,
monitors your stress as well.
okay.
But in terms of the things that it tells me I need to work on,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty clear what I have to work on. Sleep is actually the number one
Yeah.
factor, and
Mm-hmm.
um, there's probably some improvement there. But I mostly don't use alarms. I just kind of go to sleep.
Go by that. Yeah. I wonder how sad people sleep.
On the next episode,
Like, we'll get a
you
sleep
have to bring
expert.
no, you have to bring sad
Here's-
people in and just ask
Oh
them.
my
Yeah,
gosh, okay.
put an ad out.
All right. So what if someone, and I know you opened with this a little bit, but I want to come back to it. Being in entrepreneurship, being in now in your role, if you really do get to choose who your clients are and who you're working with, if I understand it correctly, you have better control over who you're bringing into your orbit. What about, and the answer could be, sorry, you don't have as much control, but I'm just curious if you've thought through people who are in corporate or in a different circumstance where they can't necessarily just like not deal with certain people. And maybe this is personal life too. Like, have you thought through that aspect of it and how to better manage those people in your life?
The the thing that I've started to play around with that I think there's some truth to is I think we mirror each other. So I'll give a good example. We were traveling in your neck of the woods, New Orleans, a
Hmm.
couple weeks ago.
By
Um,
my neck of the woods, I went to college in New Orleans, just so people know.
you're hiding your southern drawl right now.
Yes, yeah.
So we stayed in Mississippi nearby for a week, We'd never been to Mississippi. We heard there were beaches there. We hung out there. And one of the things that shocked us, my wife and I, was the concept of Southern hospitality is real.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that actually manifests is if you are at a restaurant, the waiter or waitress doesn't just like smile and take your order. They'll like stop everything and ask you about your life and talk to you for like 10 minutes. And they're like, "Oh, sorry, baby, let me go, And that is just, you come out of that experience lighter. You come out of that happier. And you kind of want that with every interaction. So, um, for folks that I do have to deal with that, may not be my chosen people, I try to bring as much lightness and levity and positivity to the situation because I find that it gets mirrored back.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
and not to say that you can necessarily change people, but like you're kind of in control of every
You
interaction
might
with
not be able to change
them.
people, you can,
Yeah,
but you can change that moment, and what you're saying, impact the way that they're responding to you. I
yeah.
mean, there's studies on this. I'm not gonna pretend like I know know them so well, but like even just sitting, like the way that people sit, gets mirrored around a conference table. So I imagine that you could intentionally use that to lighten a situation, to change turn that frown upside down. Sorry to collapse it to that, but seriously, I mean, it's a real
But
tool.
how often are we actually intentional about how much energy we're bringing to a situation, right? Like every time that I stop and say like I'm going to be at a 9 right now
Hmm.
when I walk into this, afterwards I'm so happy I did it because I'm like, wow, that really went well. But it's hard to take that pause and actually, ramp up
Well, I
the
guess it
energy.
depends what you're doing and what you're if you're performing. Like if you're going in as an athlete to something, I feel like maybe you prepare your energy and your mental state and your physical capacity in a different way than if you're walking into a meeting, but maybe we need to do more of that.
I think it's what I'm learning is it's all
Yeah.
the same.
Great.
Um, so I know that in my early entrepreneurial career, I was as a type A control freak. All my early hires told me that. I was just like,
That you're
and
great to work for.
no, like some of them are still friends of mine. They're like, dude, you sucked, right?
Yeah.
Um, only some of them are still friends for a reason. Um, and uh, over time, I think I've gotten, more chill and more happy in general. But as I've started to play more pickleball, I noticed, and some of my like closest partners that would play with me would be like, "Hey, like you don't need to get like that angry about missing a shot.
Hmm.
You know, that energy is bringing me down." And I got that enough that I started just before I walk in the door to play, I started being like, "I'm gonna be so happy right now. I'm just gonna be the nicest pickleball player." And guess what? I started winning a lot more, right? And and that energy kind of transpires throughout the day as well.
Hmm.
I had a good day in pickleball. I had a meeting on the way here as I was driving here. It was a 9, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm here and I have so much energy because I've kind of just like kept that
You
momentum
chose it
going.
beforehand. Yeah.
Guaranteed if I had been, you know, pissed at myself and cursing while I was playing, wouldn't have had as good of a meeting
Hmm.
afterwards and would probably be, I don't know if this is going well or not, but
I think it
it would
is.
probably have
No.
gone worse.
My wheels are turning
Yeah.
actually on, you started this business philosophy that now you are experimenting with in life. And I've been in enough, I've been in like internal innovation and entrepreneurship roles where, we have to get basically a business together internally and launch it. And there's a lot of the same components of as what you've done and what you described, and the amount of energy that is required for any kind of we're pulling a business together and launching it. I
And
realized
you're pulling
that
people away from something,
it's
some
from
other
right
stuff
from
they're
some
doing.
other stuff,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, exactly. And having to incentivize them over and over and over again so that they're staying with it and in
Mhm.
it, because otherwise you fumble and it's gone. And I've realized that over the past 10 plus years, I've been doing that over and over and over and over again in different contexts.
Mm,
And I didn't realize until stepping away how much of myself I gave to those and how much of my personal energy
mm.
I gave into those roles and into those projects, businesses, whatever you want to call them. And so I was thinking about this actually coming into the conversation of like, you've had to bring people around you who can infuse that energy in a sustained way. And that's, I'm sure, I assume part of where Don't Hire Sad People comes from, because they can't make it on that runway. They can't build and have what is required to see that business through to wherever it needs to go. And it sounds like you've learned that in the business world and are now kind of playing with it in the personal world.
Literally.
Yeah, exactly. And pickleball. I love how this has become a commercial for pickleball. Um, in a way that, you know, you have those moments in your life too, where you're like, I have a family. I'm creating this new like circumstance that I have to have a certain amount of energy and a certain kind of energy to push forward, to launch and grow into, while also reversing my age clock with the goal of turning 30 apparently while I'm 40.
Mhm.
And so like you said, there is no distinction. It's business, it's personal, it's how are you choosing to come into it, and then as you do, how are you impacting those people around you and how do they impact you? And it sounds like you got great feedback of, hey man, you're bringing us down a little bit. Like, can you come back? Don't be a sad person, Tivan. Can you come back up in a way that is like beneficial for all and in a way that really empowers people?
That's a good insight. I'm a
Thank
very
you.
all right. We're done. We're
We're
done.
done.
Wrap. Cut.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a good insight because um, the way you framed this conversation made it sound like Tivan is a happy person. He is not a sad person. He does not hire sad people. But what you just kind of touched on is regardless of how happy you are on average, you can be that sad person at any moment. When I'm acting shitty on a pickleball court or when I'm just like not bringing good energy in a meeting, I am that sad person. And maybe it's time box, but it still is like lowering my, effectiveness. Um, so yeah,
Performance.
yeah,
Yeah, whether in life and business, I think energy equates to performance and fulfillment. Because if you're doing something kind of jazzed about it, then that's a different feeling and experience than if you're doing it from a state of depletion and anger. Like I bet you felt so much better. And I think you said, when you go in on high vibes, then when you go in and then have that negative experience and then take that with you.
yeah. The only difference, the only thing I've changed
Yeah.
is um, I've been intentional about the energy I'm bringing. Because sometimes you're in that loop and you're in a crappy mood and you're saying F this, F that, I don't know. And once you start on that track, it's really hard to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take a pause beforehand and you say, and you, I hate this word because it's so overused, but like the gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
if you
You
find a
can
way,
say gratitude on the Soul Toll show. I feel like that's
I feel
a
like
good
it's
word here.
in some ways it's lost its meaning, at
Really?
least for me, because I've tried to practice gratitude,
I
and
love when people air quote something. Just for
yeah,
anyone listening, not
yeah,
seeing, he air
air
quoted
quotes.
gratitude.
I've tried to practice gratitude and it hasn't landed very well for me. Um,
I've had a
but
similar experience actually.
but for me, it's a reminder that anything I'm going into, like cosmically speaking, this doesn't matter. Like
Mm-hmm.
this thing here doesn't matter, right? Um, and so you might as well just have a great time doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's my version of gratitude. Um, so yeah.
I love that. I mean, it's interesting because you're a very like driven, high achieving person. And so it almost sounds like you lower the bar, but you're not. It's just a more like intuitive path almost through life, or I don't know, like what is that different feeling that you get by changing your mindset around it?
The best analogy is, were you competitive growing up? Like when you would play games?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm watching my 5-year-old.
Knew she's always right was a thing that might have been
Do
said.
you say that to your kids now? Do you say that to yourself?
No, I didn't. I wasn't the one who said it. It
Okay.
was other people saying it to me. I wasn't speaking. And anyway, moving on.
um, so I'm watching my 5-year-old now
Hmm.
start to win and lose things. He's a terrible loser.
Okay.
And I was a terrible loser up until like 5 minutes ago. I was a terrible loser. Um, but over time you start to get a little bit more mature, and you're able to play something with intensity, but also be okay with losing.
Hmm.
Um, and realize it's not the end of the world
Mm-hmm.
if you lose. I think that for driven people like myself, the analogy of like everything is a game
Mm-hmm.
and knowing the rules for how you win is really what keeps me motivated because
Makes everything fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a game in sports, there's a game in business, there's a game in family
Mm-hmm.
and marriage, and uh, I think you play better when you you play better when you understand I'm going to play hard so that I can win this, but you also realize like if I lose this, it's like not the end of the
Yeah.
world. Like this is it's fine. This is a many round game. It's
But
an
you take the
infinite game.
pressure off, so
Yeah.
then you perform. Yeah. All right. Well, so we have just another minute or two, and I've gotten so much from this conversation, but I'm curious in kind of your perspective as what would you offer someone to take away from the conversation or to embrace? Like, what's sticking for you from the conversation that we just had?
Hmm. This conversation is reminding me just how much control I have over my outcomes and my daily vibes. You've caught me on a day where I'm particularly high on life. Um,
Great, we love that.
and I feel like, there's plenty of luck involved in that because, lucky to have all sorts of good things going. But also, I feel like I'm very much in control of, of that. And yeah, I think we're in control of our own mental states.
Yeah, that's where I'm coming to, and thank you so much for joining us today. I kind of came in thinking we were going to talk more about managing people around us
Yeah.
and kind of who we let into our life, but also that's a really restrictive way to
Right.
live too. So isn't it better to look at, well, what am I putting out there? What am I can what I this is what we teach our kids too. You're only in control of you, not all the people around you. So what a great reminder that we can choose that going in, and to kind of spread that around, and then it all comes back. So thank you for that.
The other thing I'm learning as I get older and my relatives get older and my friends get older is like you cannot change the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you can, try to orchestrate a way to be around the people that you give you the most energy.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, if you are with folks that are bringing you down or are difficult, you can't change them. You can only change
Yep.
how you react.
Yes,
So
absolutely. And thank you. I didn't even have to ask the question. You teed it up so well of what could people stop doing, kind of on this topic. And it's stop trying to change the people around you,
yeah,
because the only person you can control is yourself or your reaction to what's coming up around you.
yeah.
So thank you so much for the conversation today. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. This is great.
And thank you to the listeners. We will see you on the next episode.